The hostess looked at the seating chart 3 times before she finally said the words that changed everything. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but there's no chair with your name on it." I was standing inside the most expensive restaurant in Atlanta, holding 120 desserts I had spent 2 days making by hand for my own sister's baby shower. Then my sister Madison looked at me from her table, surrounded by champagne, flowers, and people who thought they knew exactly who I was. She smiled and said, "Why don't you try that dirty pub across the street? I hear it's more your speed." My mother raised her glass and laughed softly. "It suits you perfectly." For years, those 2 women had made me feel like I was someone who never quite belonged, but what they didn't know was that the dirty pub across the street wasn't just a pub, it was mine, and the woman they were sending away was the owner of one of the most respected kitchens in Atlanta. My name is Helen Ashford. I'm 36 years old, and this is the story of the day my family finally discovered who I really was. The Kettle Black was never just a restaurant. It was my father's dream carried forward through my hands, a small brick building with a faded green door, an old kitchen, and a simple rule: nobody leaves my table hungry. My father, Frank Ashford, taught me that. He wasn't famous. He wasn't rich. He worked long hours in a diner and came home with burned hands and tired eyes. But every Sunday, he made hand pies in his old cast iron skillet. Neighbors came, friends came, even strangers came. And somehow, everyone left feeling like they belonged. When my father died, my mother erased almost every trace of him: his aprons, his knives, his cookbooks, even his skillet. I was 17 when I found that skillet sitting in the trash. I pulled it out, wrapped it in my hoodie, and hid it under my bed. That was the first thing I ever saved. And eventually, it saved me. Because when my mother told me I was going to business school and said, "No daughter of mine is going to spend her life sweating in a kitchen," I knew there was only one choice: leave. At 18, I moved to Chicago with my father's skillet and nothing else. I started at the bottom: dishwasher prep, cook, line cook, every mistake, every burn, every impossible night. I earned my way upward. Eventually, chefs around the country knew me as Chef Ash. But my family? They still thought I was just working in a bar. My mother introduced me with the same sentence every time: "This is Helen. She's in the service industry." Still finding her footing, the truth was, I had already built something most people only dream about. But I stayed silent, because sometimes hiding your success feels safer than watching the people you love dismiss it. Years later, I returned to Atlanta and bought an old pub called the Kettle Black from a man named Gus. He believed in me. I rebuilt the place. I created a restaurant where nurses ate after exhausting shifts, where workers sat beside business owners, where nobody cared about your clothes, your money, or your last name. Then everything changed. A company called Crestline Hospitality wanted my building. They wanted to turn my little pub into another expensive, empty luxury restaurant. Gus gave me 3 weeks to find financing and buy the building myself. I needed a miracle. Then, my sister's baby shower invitation arrived at Meridian, the Thai luxury restaurant directly across the street. My mother called and said, "Sweetheart, you'll make the desserts, won't you?" Nothing fancy. I knew exactly what she meant. Wasn't being invited as family. I was being used because I was useful. But Madison was having a baby, and that baby deserved better than our family history, so I agreed. The night before the shower, after finishing 120 pastries, I made one more thing, a single hand pie made in my father's old skillet. I placed it inside a small tin box with a photograph of him cooking. Gift for my niece. A piece of the grandfather she would never meet. Then came the moment that changed everything. I walked into Meridian with my desserts. I checked the seating chart, 40 names. Everyone was there, except me, the hostess. Apologized. Then Madison walked over. "Oh, Helen, this is awkward." She looked around. "The room only fits 40 people. Then she smiled. "Why don't you go to that pub across the street?" My mother added, "It suits you perfectly." I placed the tin box on the gift table. For the baby. Then I walked out. 40 seconds later, I opened the green door of the Kettle Black, and I heard the words I had spent my whole life waiting for. "Morning. Chef." My team looked up. Sam behind the bar, Dee holding my chef coat. My name stitched across the front. Helen Ashford, chef, owner, and through Meridian's glass windows. My family watched. They watched customers fill my tables. They watched my employees respect me. They watched the woman they had ignored become someone the city celebrated. For the first time in my life, I didn't need to explain myself. A few days later, my mother and sister came to the restaurant. My mother looked around and asked, "Helen, why didn't you tell us?" I'm sorry, we were wrong. Just why didn't you tell us? And that told me everything. Then my sister asked if she could host family events at my restaurant. I said no, not because I hated them, because I refused to let my success become another stage, where they decided my value, then their perfect world collapsed. Tyler disappeared. The expensive lifestyle, the apartment, the image they protected so carefully, it was all built on debt and lies, and for the first time in our lives, Madison needed me. Then came the hardest night. It was raining. My restaurant was filming for a national food program. One night could change my entire future. Then Madison appeared at my back door, pregnant, soaked, broken, Helen. I didn't know where else to go. Behind me was everything I had built. In front of me was the sister who had left me without a chair. I had 3 seconds to decide. Would I choose pride? Or would I choose who my father raised me to be? I took off my apron. I handed it to my sous chef, D. "You're past tonight. You're ready." Then I turned to the cameras. "We're done filming. I lost the opportunity. I made my future harder, but I opened the door. I brought my sister inside. I warmed my father's hand pie in his old skillet, placed the photograph beside it, and I said the words he taught me. "Nobody leaves my table hungry," Madison cried. Not because everything was fixed, but because, for the first time, she finally understood. Weeks later, my mother came back, no pearls, no perfect image, just my mother. She told me the truth. She had spent years running from the shame of being treated like she didn't matter, and when she saw me choosing the kitchen, she saw the pain she had spent her life trying to bury. I listened, but I told her something she needed to hear. Understanding why you hurt me doesn't erase the fact that you hurt me. For once. She didn't argue, she simply asked, "What can I do?" So I handed her an apron. I taught her how to make hand pies. She was terrible, but she stayed, and that mattered. Today, Madison helps run the business. My mother is slowly becoming part of my life. Again, not perfectly, not magically, because real families don't heal in one conversation. They heal through choices, through actions, through showing up. When my niece Frankie was born, we closed the restaurant for one Sunday. Everyone sat together, my family, my staff, the people who believed in me before my own family did, and there were enough chairs. More than enough. For years, I thought I needed my family to give me a seat at their table. I was wrong. I didn't need their table. I needed to build my own, because your worth is not decided by people who refuse to see you. Your value is not measured by the chair someone gives you. Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't making people regret losing you. Sometimes it's building a life so full. You no longer care who walked away, and at my table, everyone is welcome and nobody leaves hungry.